of Edfu. This is the temple of Horus. Horus is, you can see the depictions of him here. There's been more than 18 different types of depictions of Horus, but one thing to remember about Horus is the story that how he came to be. And Horus is personified also in a word that we use today called horology, which is the study of time. People that like watches tend to be people that are horologists. They're folks that like the study of time. And the reason why Horus has the study of time, you also would recognize the name hour is from ora or Horus, same thing. And additionally, it's like when time began, you could kind of say. So how did this happen? Well, his father, Osiris, was killed by his brother Set. Does anyone know why his brother Set killed him? Huh? Because he had an affair with his wife, right? So the wife of Set was a woman by the name of Nephthys, and she was particularly attractive. And, you know, I guess probably Osiris must have had a wandering eye a bit. And she happened to also be the sister of his wife, Isis. So he had an affair with her, got her pregnant, and then they gave birth to a child, and the name of the child was Anubis, right? This is the dog character, the dog man that sort of guards the underworld. Well, after Set finds out about this, he's at this party type of event, and he makes this coffin, this beautiful coffin, and it's adorned with gold, and it's very beautifully made. And so he says, anyone who could fit in this coffin can have this coffin. So of course, Osiris, being the boastful fool, right, decides to lay down in the coffin. And then of course, the moment he does that, what does Set do? He pushes him in it, slams the lid shut, nails it shut, throws it in the River Nile, right, and kills him. And then basically, to make sure he's dead, cuts his body into 14 parts and then spreads those 14 parts all across the land of Egypt. So Isis, obviously heartbroken over the whole thing, says we need to basically free my husband and get him back into life. And so what they do is they go all the way where the coffin stops is at a place called Byblos. It's in Lebanon area. And a tree had grown out of it, like an acacia tree had grown out of it. And so she goes and finds the pieces of the body, and she enlists the help of her sister, Nephthys, to find all the pieces. And they find all the pieces except for one piece. What's the one piece they didn't find? The penis, right. I think you liked saying that word. So one more time. So they don't find the penis. Well, no matter. What does Isis do? Because she has some ritual in mind. She's going to bring him back to life in some way, shape, or form. And so she needs a penis. So she makes one out of quartz crystal, which the basis of quartz crystal, its technical name is silicon dioxide, right? And it's known as the missing 1/14. So she makes this and she makes love to the dead body, right? And lo and behold, Horus is created out of this union. And so Horus becomes the reincarnated first soul of Osiris, Osir. So now Horus comes back, and he's really his father, right? And he wants to avenge himself. So what's the first thing he does? He goes back to Set, and he says, yo, you killed me in the last life. Not a very nice thing for a brother to do. So he gets in a fight, and what does Set do? He's a pretty good trickster, and he figures out a way to pluck out his what eye? Left eye. So that left eye represents what? The eye of Horus, which is lost in the battle with Set. Right? So he ends up losing his eye, but that's just symbolic of losing his eye of intuition, because the right eye is connected to the left brain, which is the seat of rational thought. The left eye is connected to the right brain, which is the seat of intuition, right? Or irrational thought. So this is the feminine side of the brain. This is the masculine side of the brain. You know, this side is linear, this side is curvilinear. So, and life wouldn't be very good without the curves, would it? So when you don't have your left eye of Horus, you're not connecting to your right brain of creativity. You're not connecting to your right brain of intuition, right? You're not connecting to this infinite field of being able to tap into things. You have to see everything in material terms. So the whole world ended up becoming materialist, because everything was only left eye, right? Everything was only left brain and the right eye of Ra. And that's what Ra comes from. The word also creates the word rational, right? So the left eye of Horus has to get repaired somehow. So the whole journey of the lifetimes of Osiris from Horus until now, and it represents all of us, is to figure out how to unite our left and right brains with the heart, right? To bring in ourselves to this heart awareness, heart consciousness. And so it has to be balanced, because if you only see it in one way, paradoxically, you're not going to get very far in science either. Because the only doorway into higher knowledge of science is through the left eye of Horus. You have to find it through the eye of intuition. We go back in time, we look at Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton, 80% of his work was related to the esoteric. It was related to the intuitive, right? And yet he's known as one of the greatest scientists of all time. Cambridge University disavowed all of this alchemical work and magic and all this other stuff that he was doing, and they sold it all eventually to Bill Gates. But the truth is, that's how he got this information. The way he got the information of what is the Euler number, right, which is the owl that I mentioned earlier on, and the Euler's identity. The way he got that information was because he was going into that intuitive space. You know, he was doing work on analyzing the Great Pyramid of Giza. Do you know that that was the fundamental thesis of all of his alchemical work? The Great Pyramid? Now, if you're a scientist, you hear that, you're like, well, that's a bunch of mumbo jumbo, right? But these are scientists that never come up with anything new because they don't know how to tap into the field. They're only regurgitating what was already told. And this is what happens also with religion. Religion and avatars come up with these great concepts like love everybody, love yourself, and don't judge anyone. And yet, what comes after that? You get some people come along and say, okay, this sounds like it's got the workings of a great business model. I mean, what's the cost of goods sold? I don't have a cost of goods sold on spirit. You know, I don't have to pay workers to till fields. I don't have to pay anyone to move stone. I don't have to pay anything. My cost of goods sold is nothing. And by the way, if I play this right, I can make it moralistic and say we should never be taxed. And get like tax exempt status, right? Does this sound familiar? It's a money machine. Truly a money machine. And then we could say, look, when you die, you could go to hell or you could go to heaven. It depends on how much you pay me. And people fell for this stuff. This is the way that it's been. You could buy forgiveness and all this type of stuff. So essentially, this idea that things start moving into this realm of materialism, and the same thing happened with education. In education, what happens? We have all these people that become hyper-specialized because the only way I could say I'm an expert in an area is by putting so much effort into that I become so rare, there's no one else that could do the same thing I do. So this hyper-specialization becomes the rationale, the reason for all of the messed up stuff in society in a way, because we're only seeing it through one eye. And that one eye of rational thought is being painted and tainted with our own conditioning biases and everything else. And there's no such thing as facts, there's only facets. So why do you think the world has such a big disunity right now? It's incoherent.
They all think they're right.
Because our perception is unable to recognize that we're not right. We're just seeing one facet. So we have no forgiveness for the other people that see it differently. We have no compassion. We have no love. And it's like, I can't love that person. You know, it's like the last few years. You go home at Thanksgiving, you talk about politics, forget it. It's like, oh, how did I end up in this family? What the hell? So this is what the story of Osiris going through lifetimes is, struggling through the lifetimes of duality. And so when you first start off in life, you think, oh, I got to be a better judge of the world around me. Because clearly that guy made a bad decision, so he died, so I don't want to end up like that. And anything that brings me shame and guilt is what I'm going to basically run away from and separate myself from altogether. So I'm just going to say, I am not that. It's just like Garden of Eden. Adam, what are you doing? Oh, I was hiding. Why were you hiding? Well, because I was naked. Who told you were naked? Did you eat of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil that I told you not to eat from? The woman that you gave me and commanded I remain with her, she gave me of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and I ate. Eve, what hast thou done? The serpent beguiled me, and I did eat. It's all symbolism, the serpent, the Kundalini life force, right? It needs to go up. It needs to have ego for you to basically go up the chakras. And what we've been doing, and what we're doing here along the Nile, is every temple we're visiting is representing different chakras, right? Different chakras, they all have different musical note representations, all the way up to the throat, which is Giza, and then Abu Rawash, which is the crown chakra, right? So if you really think about where's your pineal pituitary gland, right? If you think about the very back top of your throat, the very back of your throat and the top of your throat, about 1 inch from there is where your pineal gland is going to be, like just back. And then in a little bit above is just going to be where the pituitary gland is, okay? And you'll notice that there's like this stuff that is in the back of your throat also, that if you stick your tongue at the top of your mouth, right, and push it against your soft palate, somewhat soft, somewhat hard palate, but there's like a soft palate portion that you can touch back there with your tongue. I can't talk if I try to do it myself right now. You can actually feel, and when I fast, I do this. When I get hungry, I stick my tongue up at the top of my roof of my palate and push down on it, and I feel like a little drop of this stuff come out. Have you ever noticed this before? Have you ever done this? Okay, this is basically this like honey. It's like a sweet honey. That's right, land of the milk and honey. And you could basically get some of that and you can taste it. And it's like, it kind of is sustaining. It's weird, right? And it's an amazing thing to try. So I recommend you all try it. But basically, as Osiris goes through lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, he thinks he's got to be a better judge. So he goes through all these different cycles of lifetimes of being a king and a ruler, and he's got to do better in this world of duality. And the world of duality is that she's got dark and light. And he thinks that the game is to get more and more to the light and less in the dark. So the more we go away from what our perception, the problem is, do we even know that our perception is limited? So what we think is light may not be light to somebody else. See what I mean? And vice versa. So as we go more and more towards that light, this is what we're doing in our lifetimes from the time we're young until we get to middle age. We're essentially closing off an aspect of ourselves that we don't want to even recognize exists. And so that sin, that bad part of us, the thing that made me do it, right? Because the first thing we do when we feel shame is we want to cast blame on someone else. There's no one else to blame. You create your own matrix of mind. So with this, you have to learn that love replaces judgment. It's through true self-love. It's not through recognizing only the parts of yourself that you want to project to the world and saying that's the part you love. That's narcissism, actually. Narcissism is when you love a very limited aspect of yourself and you believe that's the only thing that you're projecting and you're unable to see all the rest. Narcissism is about blindness to all the aspects of themselves that they basically cast away and said, I am not that. So we spend the first half of our life saying, I am not that, I am not that, I'm not this, I'm not that. You know, the serpent beguiled me, or the woman that you gave me, she told me to do this. It's always someone else's fault. And until we finally recognize the only person for us to look to is ourselves, then we'll be stuck in that. We'll be stuck in that narcissism. But narcissism actually becomes the doorway because eventually you have a crisis. And that crisis leads you to realize, wait a minute, this isn't working for me anymore. And the universe tends to teach us through increasingly difficult circumstances. And we learn through these opposites, and until they get so severe that it forces us to self-reflect on our own accountability. Until that moment, we just can't see it. And then finally, we stop and instead of asking, why did someone do this to me? And why does this always happen to me? I'm a victim. And a victim always begets victimhood because a hammer always seeks a nail of confirmation bias. The moment you finally realize, why did I choose this? Then the cycle can be healed because then what we have to do is simply lean in to the thing we were fearing all along. And that's the story of Osiris. So he has to learn to love everyone around him. He has to learn that that's how he basically comes back and resurrects. So the cycle of death, burial, resurrection keeps repeating over and over and over again until he finally gets it, and then he can ascend out. We do not, and same is true for Osiris. Osiris cannot conquer his way to ascension. Osiris cannot judge his way to the next transition, to get out of the duat that he's basically cursed to live in. But it's not really a curse. The only way Osiris can learn to transition out is through. The only way out is through. And in this context, what he has to actually realize is that he's fallen in love with the world just as it is. Because the more you judge it negatively, the more negative it basically projects back to you. And it gets increasingly severe. Why do you think we're going through what we're going through right now? But as above, so below. And as we have any action, there must be always an equal opposite reaction to go along with it. And this is an equation that cannot and will never be broken in the universe. So now is the time that he's learning and remembering. And he is representing all of us. We are learning and remembering that it's about love. And when we can learn to express love and have it supersede our judgment and desire for one objective truth, the moment we decide that your relationship with me is more important to me than me being right, is when we actually start to ascend. Let's go in.
You know, like, can I add a little layer with the 6 spiritual metaphysics, like the word Om?
Yes.
We added a layer of God. So that is in the soft palate going to the back. So that, when you're humming that out, that is the CSF fluid when you're humming.
The spinal, spinal fluid.
So that comes and washes up into that space. So it's like the oyster with the sand instead of the calcification of the
Here, let's say that. Here, say that to the group. Hey, do you have the other microphone?
Can you just hold this for a second?
Yeah, hold on. There we go.
Just a heavy brush. Ascension, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Look at it coming off the.
Oh yeah. It's like Buddha, right? It's Buddha, right? Yeah, it's the arms. All right, so Suk has something to say about this. It's really cool. Go ahead.
So in Sikh metaphysics, there's an additional layer dimension to that word Om. It's ik onkar. So that sound, when you touch that tongue to the back of the soft palate where Robert was talking about, and you're humming out, that humming out is when that kundalini is rising, which is a CSF fluid that is bathing your brain and the pituitary gland. That's when it actually rises. So when you're doing that practice and you're adding that dimension of ik onkar, what you're doing, the concept of the calcification of the pituitary gland, that changes into kind of the concept of like an oyster and a pearl. So that's how you create that crystallization, and you get that kind of that, the yogic monks that meditate and they die, you get that stone. That's how you kind of create that through that process to activating in the back in that with that sound. So you can add a layer onto your meditation practice with it. Oh God.
Thank you so much. So the reason why these temples exist is they each represent different chakra points, right? So they start all the way from Abu Simbel, right, all the way up. So you go through Philae. We're going to go to the vast majority of these places. And the reason why you would go on this trek is you would basically connect to the chakra that you're in, right? And if you want, I'm going to post a photograph into the Telegram chat, which will have each of the temples, what they're associated with chakra and everything. So you don't have to worry about remembering all this stuff right now. But it's really amazing because you can start to see that the whole Nile Valley, and even where the tributaries break off of the Nile into the Mediterranean, is representative of the lotus flower. And there's 7 tributaries that break off into the Mediterranean Sea. And those 7 are representing what? Each of the colors right, in the rainbow. 7 colors of the rainbow. The 8th would be the next octave, right? And that's what we're basically here now doing. What we're doing is we're now starting the early activation stages of the crown chakra, right? That's where we are. We've been working for the last 2 years, and many people, it's not just my groups. I mean, so many groups have been coming here to Egypt. They just feel called to do the grid work, not just Egypt, but all over the world, to Peru, to Mexico, Turkey. There's all these people that are basically feeling called to go to these places. They're doing all of the work, and it's happening exactly as it's supposed to be happening, the timeline exactly as it's supposed to be happening on. And it's fascinating to watch how it's just self-organizing like a cymatic plate, right? It's like cymatics. Everyone's just organizing. That's why I don't worry about, people ask me all the time, oh, how are you going to teach all the people in this world this? I'm like, I'm not. I'm not going to worry about it. Because if they resonate at it, then they're going to find it. That's the thing. They will find it. I don't need to go out and seek it. And it's so beautiful. So as you're going through these places, you'll notice also that every temple we go into has a series of doors, right? And there's like 7 doors. Each of these gateways, the 7 chakras. So you're going to see we keep crossing through gateways. And as we cross through the gateway, what do you see up on top there? Wings, right? The winged disc, the winged disc. Now, I discovered what this actually can be a reference to, which is like mathematical, right? And for the geeks out there, I'm sure this might be kind of interesting to you. But generally, if you take the proportion of the winged disc as a circle, right? And the length of the wing itself, that becomes the exact same length. So the length of the line of the wings is the same length, right, as the circumference of the circle of the disc itself. Now, why is that important? Balance. Because the line equaling the circumference is the same as a square, right, equaling the circumference. It's another way of squaring the circle, right? It's another way of squaring the circle. So in order for you to move into this higher state of consciousness, they're showing us that they have the knowledge of what that means. Okay, let's go in.